Well, hello, welcome everybody to our latest edition of DePaul Esports Career Chats. My name is Matt Burkholz. I'm filling in for Alex, who was unable to make it today. However, regardless, we have just as interesting of an interview planned for tonight. Today we have Danielle Rourke from Dell Technologies. Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for coming onto the show. So for those of you who are new or are just curious how this is going to work, basically what DePaul Esports Career Chats is we have somebody that's involved in the esports industry in some way, shape, or form onto the show, and we hand them over a slew of questions to sort of get an insight in what it's like to be in the industry, what it's like to have to get into the industry, and maybe a little bit of tidbits to people that are looking to try and get into the gaming and esports industry for themselves. So let's go ahead on and get started. So Danielle, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got involved in the gaming industry and then eventually, the esports industry?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks so much, Matt. So I work for Dell Technologies, and my role is a higher education strategist. So what that means, like my day job and the majority of my job, is I kind of act as a go-between translator mediator between Dell Technologies as a technology company and then higher education institutions. So colleges, universities, tech schools, vocational schools, things like that. And so I get to do a lot of really fun and cool things. I get to learn about new Dell technologies and, how do you have virtualized machines and virtual desktops and huge servers and Boomi integrations and things like that. So I get to learn about that technology, but then I actually get to look at it with an educational lens on it and think about and analyze, okay, what are the ways that these technologies could actually help our education customers? And so I get to go talk, before COVID, I would travel, but now I get to talk via Zoom to a lot of our customers, different schools across the country. I actually cover about 15 states in the middle of the country because I focus on the Central, Midwest, Rocky Mountain region. And so I get to go and talk to schools about, these are the new technologies that are out there. This is what we're seeing from other colleges and universities. This is what we're hearing. These are the problems and issues they have. Let us connect you with each other and let us help you make your technology more efficient. So that's kind of my day job and, what my main job description is. But it was really interesting because when I interviewed for this job, I had to go down to the Dell headquarters in Round Rock, Texas. And there's this amazing room where they have like all of the different hardware and software pieces and things like that you can touch and you can play with. And it's like an experience lounge. And so when I was down there interviewing, I saw that and I got really excited because they had a couple of Alienware battle stations set up. And with the RGB lighting and just the curved monitors, and it was so cool. And so I asked one of the people there, I was like, oh my gosh, can you take a picture of me in front of this? Because, I love it and I want to make my 17-year-old son jealous. And so they took a picture of me. And meanwhile, the hiring manager, who's now my boss, our director of education strategy, he goes, oh, so do you like games and video games? And I said, yeah, I've been a gamer since I was a little girl. I'm super into it. And he goes, really? So he was like, I have a spot for you. So kind of my second job in my job description is I get to be the subject matter expert for esports for Dell Technologies higher education. So I get to talk with a lot of customers, even outside of, like my particular region in the Midwest that I cover, just about what are your esports goals? What are your initiatives? What do your programs look like? Are you thinking about it? Have you thought about curriculum connections? All of those different aspects, what are the careers that you want your students to be able to have? Here's some analytics, here's some research, here's what we're seeing from other programs. So I totally fell into this and I love it, because I've been playing video games ever since I was little. And so I really enjoy my job and kind of got lucky to be able to do this for a living.
Yeah, that's great. That's a great story. Yeah, those like curved monitors are definitely really cool the first time you see them because it's not like, especially like all the different lights that come up with some of the PCs and like the keyboards, it's definitely really neat to watch like once you once you see it for the first time. So I guess kind of building onto that, like what was something about like what was something about gaming and like to by extension esports that really stuck out to you, like when you first like or just really sticks out to you in general? Like what made it that much more exciting to see all those like Alienware PCs in action and like seeing like getting interested in it like from the get-go? Like what would you say is like kind of the driving force behind that?
I kind of being a gamer my whole life, I understood that it was more than just video games. It was more than just, sitting by yourself and avoiding the rest of the world. There was collaboration, there was competition, there was ways to connect with people. Like more often than not, I would meet my friends through gaming and through being interested in the same video games, as opposed to, trying to avoid people by doing that. So I think it's important for those of us that are kind of champions of gaming and the positive beneficial effects that it can have and the ways that it can bring people together, to tell that story and to be out there in the world, helping those people who do think it's just video games, it's just wasting your life, it's just throwing time away, and help them to see, no, this is not only fun, but it's actually a connection point, and it's a way for us to collaborate. It's a way for us to learn teamwork and to learn leadership and to learn communication, and that there are actual viable careers, like six-figure jobs out there in the esports industry that are more than just being a professional player, to support this. So I think that's like the one probably most important thing to me is I love the fact that I get a chance and a platform to be able to help educators understand that this is more than just a fun pastime. Like this has actual educational opportunity behind it and actual like financial career opportunities behind it. So I think that's really cool. And being in this, like I said, I've been a gamer my whole life, but it was like Tomb Raider and Uncharted and Diablo, and those were my games, and they weren't typically like esports games. So I got to learn a whole new facet of gaming by getting into esports and understanding that there is this competitive nature and that you can play as a part of a team and get just as excited and be in arenas and have it be just as pumped up as your traditional sports.
Yeah, that's really well said. I don't think I could have said it better myself. It's very much like a different sense of it's very much like the same sense of immersion you get with like a single player game, just like in a totally different sense.
Yeah.
But, yeah, that's really great. So once you did get into your, as you say, got a little bit lucky getting into your like sort of gaming centric secondary job. What did you do in order to learn more about gaming and like esports? Was there like a formalized educational like experience for it? Was there like a protocol for teaching you about everything, or did you kind of have to do a little bit of like prior research on your own?
So yeah, I mean, a lot of it was life experience, just because I've been a huge geek, like a self-admitted geek for my whole life. So, it was something I loved and something I was already interested in and passionate about, and things I already followed on social media or watched on YouTube when I was eating lunch, or things like that. So it was nice to come into it with kind of that base ground knowledge. But like we talked about with esports and learning a little bit more about the competitive nature of esports and the esports games, I actually relied quite a bit on some mentors here at Dell Technologies. If Snow is out there, Snow White, and yes, that is her real name. It's like the coolest name ever. But she is my counterpart on the K through 12 side. So whereas I go in and I help higher education institutions understand how esports can help their students and their institution itself, she does the same thing for K through 12. So talking to high schools, talking to middle schools, talking to teachers and principals and superintendents. And so she was just this wealth of knowledge, because she had a good 6 months to a year on me as far as the esports and the collaborative nature of it and the competitions and things like that. So I got to learn from her. We have partnerships with, Skillshot out in Georgia, and we have partnerships with Meteor as far as the space design, and we have partnerships, with like Riot Games and with Team Liquid on the Alienware side of things. So just utilizing all of those different resources and those partnerships that Dell Technologies had already built up, I was able to really just kind of like immerse myself and learn about it and get in there. So at the time, I didn't have any, like formalized training, but I've got to admit some of the schools that I've been working with around the country are starting to create these curriculum programs, or starting to create, courses or certificates or degrees or minors or things like that. And I'm looking at it because I think it's an opportunity for colleges and universities to provide skills and training and education for students for legitimate careers that didn't exist 5 to 10 years ago. And so I think it's, partially a responsibility of educational institutions to do that. So I'm so excited to see more formalized training and everything coming. But I would say, like my recommendation, just from my own experience, I went out the day after, I think, that I knew I got this job and I knew that being an esports subject matter expert was going to be part of my job. I went to like Barnes and Noble and bought like PC Gamer and Game Informer, and because I was like, I need to get caught up. Like I am not caught up on the world of gaming at the moment. So just using any resources that you can, using mentors, using Discord friends, using all kinds of resources just to get yourself educated is great.
Yeah, that's great. This is definitely one of the most interesting questions to me, just because esports is such like a rapidly developing, such like a definitely a much more recent field than many. So to hear how like people get integrated into it, how they learn more about it, you usually get a lot of different stories. So that's really great to hear.
Yeah.
A quick reminder to anybody watching from home: if you do have any sort of questions that you want to ask Danielle, be sure to just toss them over into the Twitch chat or Facebook or the Facebook live stream chat, and we'll be sure to answer them right after the end of the questions that we have right here. So I guess kind of building off the fact of like, getting into the esports field, what's something that you wish you had known about gaming and esports before you entered the field, like before you started working a lot more closely with it?
Good questions. I think it goes back to the fact that I completely underestimated the passion and the fire and the drive and the amazing sense of community that is behind, esports, because there's the gigantic gaming industry where you've got, all the video game productions and sales and, art and things like that. But I didn't realize how massive esports had gotten. I knew that people got together and, had LAN parties or had console parties or things like that. But I didn't realize that it was tournaments and championships and huge prize pools and filling arenas with fans that just absolutely lose their minds about things. So I wish I would have known that a little bit more walking into it, because it was something that blew me away as I started doing my research, just the numbers and the viewership and the all of the different career paths that are associated with it. It was really fascinating to me, and I'm so grateful that I know now. But yeah, it probably would have made my learning curve a little less steep if I would have realized how big of a part of the entire gaming community that was.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I think it's definitely a good thing to kind of point out to people. So starting to move things a little bit more towards current events. How do you think the industry, whether it's gaming, esports, or both, has adapted or changed as a result of the ongoing pandemic that's been taking place throughout this year?
It's undoubtedly been a change. It's definitely, thrown a monkey wrench in live in-person events, or actually traveling to an arena and having that happen, as well as, maybe even, being on campus or being in a room with your esports team. So all of those things have been, maybe disappointing or kind of a letdown to not be able to do that. But I have just been so amazed and blown away by the esports community, in that everybody has really kind of pulled together and said, you know what, we are one of the few competitive sports that can make it through this, and it's not easy, but it's something where we can still function and we can still collaborate and be a part of a group and compete and have scrimmages and, play for fun and maintain those social connections. Whereas, other more traditional sports, I guess, that require that physical contact, like football or soccer, baseball, or, et cetera. I mean, even NASCAR, like that they weren't able to keep going. So I think it is, it's definitely a very bittersweet moment, because there are absolutely things that have been lost as a result of COVID. But I feel like the esports and the gaming community has come together even stronger. And every single day I hear stories about CIOs or principals or superintendents or fathers or mothers or grandparents who had no idea, thought that their kids or whoever were just going off and playing video games, but now kind of because everybody's been locked down and kind of stuck with each other, like they start to get into it. They're like, this is kind of cool. I can kind of see this. So yeah, I think it's a bittersweet thing, but I'm definitely trying to focus more on the sweet side of things. The fact that we're getting more people into it and more people are understanding why it's a benefit.
Yeah, once again, I think that's really well said. We're definitely lucky with esports to be able to have that, to have that resource of being able to transition things pretty smoothly to being online. So I'm glad that I agree completely. I'm really glad that so many different communities around the world have been adapting like esports into being like more like a stay at home, like an online sort of experience.
Yeah.
So then looking ahead a little bit towards the future, what major developments do you see in the gaming and esports industry in, say, the next 5 years?
I think kind of going back to the previous question, this pandemic situation has shown everybody, that mobility can be good. So, if we don't see more people and students and gamers, buy machines for their home, whereas maybe they were previously using them at school or at, gaming cafes or things like that. If we don't just see desktop sales go up for that, I actually could see gaming laptops maybe gaining in a little bit of popularity because we're seeing that just across the board. The fact that many people have seen that this is a chance to switch to laptops, to switch to more mobile solutions so that you can still work from anywhere, that you can still learn from anywhere. And so I think that just kind of extrapolates over to gaming too. Having whether it's devices, whether it's services, NVIDIA services or Stadia or whatever, where you can game from anywhere and you can do that on a variety of different devices. I think that's going to be important. So I think that's going to be just kind of a natural shift as a result of the environment that we're in. But I'm going to kind of toss in my own personal hope of what happens in the future, and that's really more inclusion and diversity in gaming, because I think everybody can admit it's previous years it's been somewhat male dominated, and there are some potentially questionable activities that go on a little bit in the esports world. You're shaking your head at me, Matt.
Yeah.
So my personal hope is, by making it more visible, making it more understood, like with anything, that increases acceptance of it and that increases knowledge behind it and understanding and compassion and inclusion and diversity. So I really hope to see more women get into gaming, or at least, there's already a lot of women in gaming. If you all didn't know this, I am not a spring chicken and I've been playing since I was a little girl. So, we're out there. It's just maybe we weren't as visible before, and maybe we didn't, rise to the top of leaderboards or weren't as vocal or things like that. So I think just anything we can do to increase that visibility for female gamers, for ethnic gamers, and LGBTQ gamers, just making gaming and making esports a more inclusive, diverse, passionate, compassionate place for people to be, I think is amazing. And we're seeing some, like Latinx gamers, we're seeing girls who game, we're seeing all kinds of groups that are really just trying to reinforce that and make sure that esports can be a welcoming place for everyone.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. I think, especially as esports has continued to just grow like astronomically as the years go on. I think that making sure that we take more serious steps towards better inclusivity and making sure there's better representation is just the next logical step of focus that I think the industry definitely needs to take, and something that hopefully we will see in due time. So
absolutely.
All right. So then this is the last question from us. So once again, if any viewers at home have any questions that they want to ask Danielle, be sure to just drop them in the stream chat, and we will answer them right after this question. And this is going to be a little bit more of a general question. So it's, what's a piece of advice you have for DePaul University students that are looking to get into gaming and esports as, as like a potential career path?
I think I've got two pieces of advice, if I can. I'll try to be quick with them. So my first piece of advice would be never stop learning. And I'll go back to my story and the fact that, if someone would have asked me, I would have been like, yeah, I'm a gamer geek and I know a lot of what there is to know. Granted, I'm not up to speed on all the games and everything, but I know what there is to know in the gaming culture. And then I stepped into this and realized all of those things about esports. And I was so happy because it was almost like rediscovering gaming for the first time, just learning all of these new things and learning about the community and learning about the pro teams. And I'm still learning every single day. And so, and that just kind of speaks to my other passion for education in the fact that, just because you graduate or just because you finish school or you leave a team or something like that, don't stop learning, like never stop learning. And there's always so much more to learn about esports and the gaming community. And so then I think my second piece of advice would be, be persistent and don't give up. And just because, you don't go straight from college to working at Blizzard, like, don't feel like that's a failure. And I use that as a real life example. I actually had an interview with Blizzard a few years ago, like a couple of jobs and lifetimes ago. And, and I didn't make it. And working at Blizzard was like my dream job. Ever since I saw those cinematics, on Diablo, I was like, oh, that's what I want to do. But, so I was disappointed when I didn't get it. And then I went down these other paths of, IT and being in higher education and then coming to Dell. And all of a sudden, like, gaming was back on my radar and back as a part of my job and my career path. And so I would say don't give up, because just because it's not a straight shot, life takes you in all kinds of different turns. And if it's one of your passions, you're going to find ways to incorporate it.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. I think those are both wonderful pieces of advice that anybody trying to get into any kind of any kind of field within gaming and esports can definitely really take to heart. So thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So this is going to be where we open up questions to the audience. I do think we got a couple of questions from our Twitch chat.
Awesome.
So the first one that we see here, this one's a bit of a double header, but the first part is, how do you think competitive gaming has sort of altered the gaming industry as a whole?
I think there has definitely been kind of a shift to focusing on creating games that can facilitate competitive gaming and can facilitate esports. So and it's funny, and it's it's kind of that principle where, like, when you first realize that there are elephants on the world, then all of a sudden you start seeing elephants. Like, I think that happened with me a little bit because I didn't realize esports was so big, and I started to learn about it, months ago. And now that I know about it and now that I see it, when I see games come out, I'm like, that would be a good esports game, or no, that wouldn't work for esports, So I start thinking about it that way. And I think that the developers and the publishers have started thinking about it that way too. Just, how could we make this particular game facilitate kind of that competition and making esports out of it? Because, you win the hearts and minds of fans, and you get a, like almost a, dare I say, rabid following. Like, that's promotion. That's successful games.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. Especially multiplayer has always been something that developers have had to consider before, but now more than ever, it's just become such a different field of its own that you have so many games that are focused on it now. So
Absolutely.
So the second part of this question is, because gaming has become more mainstream now especially now more than ever, how do you think we can expect the industry to evolve as a result of becoming more mainstream?
Just based on some of my previous experience, I think it will be really interesting to watch, because I think there will probably be developers and publishers and studios and companies out there that really get it right and really, bring in inclusion and diversity and try to make their games more, have a broader appeal and have more inclusion for different types of people, different types of players, different types of styles, things like that. But then, just like anything else, there's gonna be those same entities that get it really wrong, and that maybe look too much for profit or look too much at one particular niche of the fan base or of the crowd or the players, and that maybe totally miss the boat, or that maybe they don't even intend to. Maybe they just inadvertently don't consider all of the implications of what they put out there into the gaming community and the gaming world. So I think just being, as gamers, being savvy to that and looking at everything with an objective eye and saying, like, what could be the motivations behind this? Or, like, let's not go off the deep end and totally say, like, they're trying to push me down. Like, maybe it was a legitimate, they didn't consider it. And that in and of itself may be a bad thing, but, look at everything with an objective eye. Don't believe everything you read. Don't, just automatically assume things. Like, do some research, do some thoughtful questioning, and then make your choices based off that.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that's a very fair analysis of what's to come. So just looking at everything here, that seems to be all the questions that we have from the viewers. So Danielle, before we signed off, did you want to maybe, show everybody like a little bit of it? Did you want to maybe give all the viewers a chance to show them where they can find a little bit more info about you and about Dell Technologies?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we have a website that might show up on the screen. Yeah, thank you. It's magic. So that is our Esports for Education website for Dell Technologies, and it's going to have a lot of information. Yes, about like Alienware gaming systems or precision gaming systems, or just different monitors and peripherals and things like that. But if you go to the bottom of that page, there's also stories and there's also videos, and we've got checklists for if you're thinking about starting an esports program, this might be what you want to consider. And then we've got some videos from different schools that have implemented esports programs and talking about what it means to the students and how it really helps the students and their educational objectives, and how it brought all kinds of different students in who maybe weren't involved in anything else in their school. So yes, it can look like a product page if you just go to the top, but if you keep scrolling down and look through there's a lot of really great information, and then there's just different ways to reach out too. So, I'm on Twitter at Hi Ed Danielle. Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is totally like magic. You're like a wizard, Matt. So yeah, that is my Twitter handle. So I would love for anybody to follow me. I post probably way too much about esports and gaming and education and Girls Who Game. It's a program that Dell works with as far as like getting 4th through 9th grade girls into gaming and into STEM careers. So follow me out there and share with me if you've got something really cool going on. I would love to hear about it.
All right, yeah, that's wonderful. Definitely a couple of really great resources for anybody to look at after this interview concludes. So I think that's pretty much all that we have to talk about here. Thank you so much, Jane, for coming by. Thank you for sharing everything. I think you provided a lot of really interesting viewpoints about everything.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's always a great time. I will talk for hours about esports and gaming, so I'm glad we have a time slot to say, Danielle, be quiet. So,
well,
thank you.
Well, yeah. I mean, if anybody else did want to hear you talk on and on about gaming and esports, I mean, they could always just follow your Twitter, get a little bit more of your opinion on everything from there.
Absolutely. So thank you so much. Thank you to DePaul for having me, and thank you, Matt, for the really great questions, and to the audience for the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, everybody. So that's going to be it for this week. We're going to go ahead and sign off right now. So thanks again for tuning in. We'll be back next week. And until then, we'll see you around. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye.